Well, you can't trust County.
Welcome back, honey, to another episode of CreepTime. How you doing?
I'm doing super well. You know what I did yesterday? I binged The Pit. Have you watched that?
No, I've been dying to watch that.
Jen recommended it a million years ago, and I got home my three Thanksgivings, like Friendsgivings in one weekend. And I got home and I watched Welcome to Derry, and then I was like, I need more TV.
Mm-hmm.
And I just saw The Pit on HBO, and I had to stop myself from watching it. I'm like, you have to go to bed. Stop this. You have to go to bed.
It looks so darn good. And like, does it scratch
Not
the
darn.
same itch? Darn. Does it scratch the same itch as, does it scratch it as Grey's Anatomy for you?
It's more realistic. It's more realistic.
Way more. Okay.
Yeah, but it does scratch that same part of my brain.
Darn. That's how you know.
10 a.m. I was like, darn. Let me get a sip of my Java. Hold on. Creepers.
What's wrong with darn? You know what it is I think recently,
it's just new.
He's been doing this voice for me where it's like where he dips into Southern. And I'm like, when did I become Foghorn Leghorn on this day?
It's contagious. Oh no.
It's just too much, baby. Oh my God. Well, let me shift us into the case that we're going to do today, because it is definitely a different feel. And I know you kind of said that with your last case. It's a little bit of a different style for you. I feel like we usually like to let the dust settle before we dive into relatively new cases.
Mm-hmm.
But this one just freaked me the hell out. And the more I researched it, the more I discovered how much the victim's family is still in the dark about this case. So I personally just wanted to put some pressure on it because the case itself and the family desperately need more answers. And when I heard, I'm going to start the case off today with the 911 call that I heard that initially kind of introduced me to this case. And I got like just full body chills. And I think it's maybe because, and I'll play it, but the person that's calling in is a sister calling in about a brother. And I feel like that's obviously just something that most people can relate to.
Yeah.
But I just had such a feeling of like dreadfulness and just like, I was genuinely scared, which I feel like that takes a lot for me to be like when you tear up, it takes a lot for me to get there. And I heard this and I don't know why, it just really, really freaked me out. So before I play it, let me just give you a little bit of context, because today I'm going to be talking about the murder of an 18-year-old named Christion Olson that happened on July 13th, 2024. Do you recognize that name at all?
Oh, I can't tell. I honestly can't tell. Initially, it sounded familiar.
I'd be really shocked. I mean, I feel like there's barely any coverage on this case so far. I mean, it really is just over a year old, but it desperately needs more. So I would be, if you were going to be like, oh my God, I know this case, I'd be like, oh my God. But it takes place in Medina, Ohio. And Medina. Wait, I think it's Medina. I heard Medina, but I'm pretty sure it's Medina, Ohio. And Christion was at a small party with some friends. And at some point, he leaves the party alone, or so everybody thinks. And then he comes back an hour later in a condition that's just completely off the rails, both physically and mentally. And nobody to this day knows what happened in that gap of time. His friends ended up bringing him back to his house. And what you're about to hear is the 911 call that his sister Chrissy makes once the friends have brought him back. And she's just trying to explain what she's seeing, what she's hearing. And I'm just going to let it play from here.
Oh, God. Okay.
Please hurry. He's not. He passed out. I don't know what's wrong with my little brother.
Okay, how old is he?
He's 18.
18?
Yes.
Okay, is he breathing?
No, I don't think so. He just passed out. He just burst through the door and he couldn't walk. And he kept saying, please help me. And he started throwing up blood. And it started coming out of his nose. And then he just passed out.
I mean, let me just get your first initial takes before I put any qualifiers in there.
Oh, God. It's crazy. We haven't done one in a while where we've had a 911 call, but they're so chilling.
I know. And there's something about a sibling that just, obviously you and I both have little brothers, and it's just like, oh, it just hit me so much harder for some reason when you can relate that immediately.
Scenario.
Yeah. And I just want to point out, I mean, I think for me, the most haunting detail was when she said, there's blood coming out of his mouth.
Yeah.
And we'll get into obviously this whole moment, but he's almost like kind of catatonic at this state. And the way this case, and I think why it just chilled me to the bone, is that it all sort of feels like it's like a blitz attack of like everything kind of going wrong. And so for the siblings, and also we'll get to it, but like the parents to kind of receive him in this manner was just incredibly jarring. And it kind of only goes just kind of faster from there. So, but before I launch into the full case today and the backstory I have on Christion Olson, let me just say, welcome back, creepers, once again to another Friday episode. I am your host, Stu, and alongside of me is, I can't even say this. I said, the king of sinister delights, Silas Dean. I was like, I'm back on my alliteration.
Baby, you know that's a sex toy line somewhere in Europe. The king of sinister delights.
The king of sinister delights,
it's
Silas
like a kinky
Dean.
Willy Wonka. Ew.
I know. Somewhere Zach Bagans is like, excuse me, don't come for my bag. But every week we bring you brand new cases of true crime, ranging from unsolved mysteries to murders to cases of the paranormal, traditional true crime, you name it. And we aim to do it all with just a little bit of levity. So you actually hopefully walk away feeling empowered to share these stories with your friends and family and kind of share these victims' names and get their stories out there. And we're always eager to grow our community, speaking of friends and family. So if you can, please share this show with your friends and family. Tell them about CreepTime. Tell them about these two nut jobs and welcome more people into our community.
You got company? It's all right.
I know. Come on in. We've got communities on Reddit. You can follow our show on Spotify, which you can watch for free on Spotify. We always keep mentioning a lot of people don't know that. They think they have to subscribe in order to get that video content. But babies, come on over. You can watch us live in the flesh. Or I guess we're not live, but we are in this moment.
But there is flesh.
There is a lot of flesh, actually. I was going to say, I'm wearing a corset today.
I was literally thinking that while you were talking. I was like, is she wearing a corset?
Do you know what's hilarious? Is I am packing, obviously, for my move. And I found the box of all my tour clothes yesterday. So I was like, because I wore Yeah, baby. This is the top.
Oh, wait.
With that
was it Salt
skirt.
Lake? No, not Salt Lake City. Oh, wait. No, it was Portland.
I think I wore this like multiple times, maybe Portland and like LA.
It's a blur.
It's all a blur. Like, but seriously, when I pulled out all the clothes, I was like, oh my God, all the different like just memories came flushing back. It was awesome. But anyways, yeah, you can follow us on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcast. And be sure to check out our premium catalog as well. And I'm pretty sure you can try it for free for like 4 weeks on Spotify, which I think is actually like a little bit of a better deal than Apple.
I think it's 2. I think it's 2 weeks.
I think I saw it the other day. It said $0 for 4 weeks. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
I was
but
like,
maybe they're running
Apple
a
did that
holiday
without
special.
our knowledge.
Okay, I was just saying maybe they're running a holiday special or something. But be sure to check it out, and then also be sure to check out our after show called CreepTime After Dark if you want even more moments of levity and craziness, babies. But with all of that out of the way, are you ready to dive into the case of 18-year-old Christion Olson?
Yeah, I'm really, really interested. It has a weird parallel almost to Alonzo Brooks and the idea of him going to a party and something goes down.
I know. It was really weird because I had already started doing research for this case when you were doing Alonzo last week. And I was like, oh my God, this is really weird how much it parallels. So let me just go ahead. I'm going to drop that Reddit doc into our chat, and creepers, you know the drill. These visuals are going to be up on Reddit for you to follow along with as well. And I would say just stick to, I think probably like the first page for now. And I'll kind of cue you later. But before we go any deeper, I just want to share a little bit of what I've learned about who Christion Olson really was. And I don't have a ton of like deep dive info like we normally do because it's all still very recent. But from everything his parents shared, you really do get the sense that he was just a good kid. And, you know, we always see this. We're like, yes, of course, parents are going to paint that sort of picture. But from the interviews I watched, it really comes through. He had just graduated high school. He was working as an hourly manager at a local pizzeria, basically saving up enough money to put himself through trade school. He had always wanted to be
18 too.
At 18. And his parents in this interview were like, we never prompted him to do that. Like he has always kind of been an ambitious go-getter type of kid. And he always wanted to be a welder or a lineman. And yeah, he was just ambitious and he was very kind-hearted. I think his dad said he is the type of kid that would literally give you the shirt off of his back. And he had a brother and a sister who I already mentioned his sister Chrissy, but he had another brother named Christopher Jr. They were all, I kind of love this, they're all like Chris kids, Christian, Chrissy, and Chris Jr. So I think, and the dad's Chris, obviously. So I think it's kind of indicative, like they're just a really tight-knit family regardless. But apparently as siblings, they were super, super tight. And of course, all that just makes the unknowns in this case feel so much more heartbreaking to me. I want to walk us through the night right up to the moment before that 911 call. So at around 3 a.m., Christian's little brother, Chris, gets a call on his phone from one of Christian's friends, this guy named Eric. And he's saying, basically, he's like, hey, your brother is just in like super bad shape. We thought he was wasted, but something's really, really off. And we don't know what to do. Like, what should we do with him? Should we call the police? And Chris, his brother, is like, all right, well, don't call the police. Just go ahead and bring him home, because they were only about 20 miles away from Christian's house. But strangely enough, it takes them about another hour to actually get him there. And I don't know, and we'll talk about it, but maybe it was like they needed to sober up because they had been drinking that night, or figure some other sort of plan out. But by 4 a.m., Eric and then these two other friends that were at the party, these kids named Braylon and Aiden, actually managed to get Christian to his house. So Braylon stays in the car, and I wish I had visuals for these kids for you, because I think that would help piece who they are. But there were no pictures on the internet, or at least they're being concealed right now. I'm sure they've done that purposely.
Were they 18 as well? They might have also been 17. They could have been minors.
That's true. That's true. I think the majority of them were 18.
Okay.
But Braylon ended up staying back in the car, and it's really Eric and Aiden who walk Christian inside, like through the threshold of his house. So once Chris, the brother, opens up the door, they basically have to drag Christian through the doorway, and he's just like mumbling, and he's saying he's just like in so much pain. I'm in pain. It hurts. It hurts. And meanwhile, Eric is trying to explain to Christian's brother, he's like, I have no idea how he got like this. I guess he's just absolutely wasted, but I drank way more than him. I don't know why he's acting like this. I feel fine. We don't know what's going on. But he's been throwing up blood in the back seat, and he just keeps saying that he's in pain, and like, can't make out what he's saying. And so when they get him inside, Chris and his sister and the boys try to get Christian like cleaned up and try to get him to like talk, get more of an idea about what's happening without waking their parents up. They're really scared of waking them up.
Oh, God.
But with all of the commotion, his dad, Chris Sr., and his mom, Rochelle, both wake up, and immediately his dad is demanding an explanation from these boys. They say they just thought that Christian was drunk, and his dad is like, no. This is something way more than this. And all of a sudden, Christian starts to really vomit up blood. Like it's just coming out of his mouth.
Oh my God.
Just terrible. And they managed to get him into a bathroom as well. And he's just basically going in and out of consciousness in front of the entire family's eyes, which I cannot imagine how terrifying that was for his parents to basically wake up in like a stupor at 4 a.m. and they're met with the task of basically trying to figure out and save their kid. And I think here, Chris Sr., the dad, is obviously in this like state of panic, probably anger, and he's just trying to get Eric and Aiden to give him more answers in real time. But they just keep saying over and over again, he's drunk. We just think he's drunk. We weren't with him. And then Chris Sr. does something smart, and he sort of like he examines his son further, and he starts noticing all these marks on him. He notices what he thinks looks like a shoe print on Christian's face and a pretty massive cut on his shoulder. And he presses the boys, and the boys just stand there and say, we have no idea. We have no answers. All the while, Christian pretty much can only mumble, please let me lay here is what they keep hearing him say. And at one point they thought that he just like asked for a Coke or something. And then from what I read, he asked for that Coke, and then all of a sudden he stopped breathing. And that's when obviously things get incredibly scary, and Christian's sister runs for the phone and makes that 911 call that I played. And at this point, it's obvious that this is a very, very real medical emergency. The family's doing CPR. They're trying to, just do everything they can until the Medina EMTs get there, and they rush him to the hospital. But in this heartbreaking turn of events, Christion does not make it, and he passes away at 5:56 in the morning. And the family is just left there like absolutely stunned because all of this happened so quickly, and there's really no clear reason for why he started acting that way. So before I go into more of the details, how does that entire kind of tragic series of events sit with you?
You hit the nail on the head. That's tragic. It's tragic. I just can't think of any other scenario as horrible and horrifying. I mean, 911 should have been called a long time ago before those friends even tried to transport him. I mean, that was just complete idiocy. Throwing up blood, that's the medical emergency. That's crazy.
Yeah. It's
oh God,
we'll talk
I feel
about
so horrible. The family had to witness this. Jesus,
I know, isn't that and that is the feeling I just had where I was like, the more I discovered that these people are still left in the dark, the more I was like, no, we got to elevate this. This is so.
I can't even think of what that would be.
I mean, we're going to have to unpack it together, but I have a couple of theories. I mean, do you have any sort of initial just gut reactions to it, what it might be? I
mean, this doesn't sound like anything in the vein of booze or alcohol to me. This sounds, I don't know. This sounds like he ingested a chemical like bleach or something.
Oh, that's really interesting.
He's throwing vomiting blood. I'm just like, what could be ripping through his esophagus or his stomach?
Yeah. Well, hold on to that because that's really interesting, and I did not have that as part of my theory. So
really,
but that might actually explain some things.
Or he could have been. I mean, you're also talking about marks on him, so I'm also thinking, was he beaten so severely he has? I don't know if certain internal bleeding would show up in vomiting blood, but maybe it could.
Yeah, I think you're kind of on the money with that. That's part of where I think I kind of go in one of my theories. But it's just such a sad series of events. And the family just kept saying it was like we woke up and it was just an immediate nightmare. Like we were caught in this whirlwind of events. Everything happened so fast. And then all of a sudden, boom, he's dead. So as if they aren't already just stunned by how fast everything happened, the coroner comes back and tells them that his death is being ruled as suspicious. And the family is basically just stuck in this awful limbo period. The police tell them they're going to hold off on giving them answers until they piece everything together. And in the meantime, the Olsons are just basically completely left in the dark. And you could hear it in their interviews, this sense that the slow trickling in of information that they would get was not only painful, but it just completely allowed for rumors to run wild in Medina. And people started speculating that Christion overdosed or even took his own life, which of course the family saw him alive and they knew that wasn't true. And they didn't have the toxicology report yet. And this was what I was talking about last week, where I was like, it does take that long. Same thing with Christion. It took 6 to 8 weeks for them to get the toxicology report back. But they had seen their son alive. So like I said, they knew that those rumors just didn't add up with what they saw. And then on top of all of this heartbreak, they're just dealing with this purgatory where they don't know what the truth is, and they can't get the friends, if there is more, they can't get them to say what that is.
Yeah.
But maybe there really isn't more. Maybe it was just this freak accident.
I'm wondering that too.
Yeah. Well, I really want us to figure out where we lean, because even at the end of all this, I'm like, this is going to be really interesting recording today, because I don't know where I truly stand with it. I have hunches, but I don't feel tied. So I'm going to fast forward us to September 26th, 2024. So after months of waiting, the family finally gets the full autopsy and toxicology report back. And honestly, it's just shocking. There was no alcohol in Christion's system.
Whoa.
None. And not only that.
Whoa, what?
I know. This is going to be so weird. Not only that, he had severe internal fractures on his ribs and collarbone. He had bruising on his face and his torso. And then he had puncture wounds in his liver that just obviously didn't align with a simple fall or seemingly anything accidental.
Yeah.
So Christion's death is ruled as a blunt force trauma to the neck and abdomen, and the medical examiner rules it also as homicide. And while his parents might have this gut feeling, obviously, that something was off, I mean, especially his dad sensed it the night of, this ruling just shatters the community because no one knows what happened to him in this missing window of time between 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. when he left that party and came back. It is a complete mystery, supposedly, and it leaves everyone wondering what really happened in those lost moments. And one more detail before we sort of like retrace his steps that night. The medical examiner did find a small amount of weed in Christion's system, but he made it very clear. He was like, this is nowhere near the amount that I think would cause any sort of like hallucination or something that would cause him to go into almost like that comatose state that you all are reporting you saw him in when he got home. So I just want to mention that. So you've got the full picture. But with that, well, first, let me ask you, have any questions before I kind of dive into what people said happened that night?
I don't think so. I think I'm just kind of reeling from the shock of there being no booze in his system from that night.
None. And I guess I will say that I read about the fact that it could have, I guess, metabolized slowly over time if he had been, I don't know, drinking at like 9 p.m. and then all of a sudden by 4 it had metabolized entirely. But from the nature of the timeline of the night and also the amount that Eric and Aiden said that everybody at the party was drinking.
Right.
Just didn't make sense. So very, very strange. But with that, I'll dive us into what happened that night, according to the friends. And actually, I think on the second page, I got some very limited pictures of people's like Snapchats and random pics that they took at this little party.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
So was this in a dorm? It looks like
so this was actually, it was at Eric's dad's house. And these are high schoolers. So they're basically just like hanging out at like a random kid's house after on like I think this was a Saturday. So they're just hanging out in the summertime and they already graduated.
One other thing just about the Reddit pictures, because I know people were asking and Jen said this was really helpful in the last episode. For anyone who is not familiar with how to get to these visuals and follow along, we always include a link in the description of the episode. So just scroll down, click the Reddit link, and you can see all of the pictures that Stu compiled for this case.
Awesome. So this party and the events that must have transpired, they all went down in this neighborhood of Brunswick Hills, Ohio, which is, from what I read, a very, very nice neighborhood. And it's a little bit outside of Medina where Christion's family lives, but it's a very nice, affluent neighborhood. And the investigation kicked off very quickly, actually, basically the morning of the party on July 13th in the early morning hours. Police started questioning the friends, Eric and Aiden, right there in the Olson's driveway, right after the Olsons left to take him or go with him to the hospital. Police were like, we're going to start questioning right now. And on the surface, all of the friends were super duper cooperative. They tell the same story and it all lines up. And I listened to the body cam footage and I've got like a still, I think, of Eric, and it's all blurred out. They have definitely lawyered up fast, I guess, for this. I could not find any visuals of these kids, but from the body cam footage, and maybe I'm just reading into it, but you can, I feel like hear when somebody is tripping up just very immediately, like, especially if the event just happened. And Eric sounds genuinely shocked, like he cannot believe what has just happened. But we know that there's got to be more to the story, even if the kids' stories totally match up on the surface. So that's where the police start from, though. And Eric lays out a really clear timeline. He explains that earlier that night, they picked Christion up and they'd actually brought him over to Eric's dad's house at around 10 p.m. And like I said, that's where the party was. And his dad knew about the party and was kind of fine with it. It was actually a pretty small thing. It was not like some huge blowout graduation party. It was just like kids getting together, like maybe 10 kids. And he kind of one of those situations where he's like, if you're going to drink, I'd rather you do it in the house, like go upstairs to the rec room. And interestingly, his dad actually had a date that night. And so his dad didn't get back until around midnight with his girlfriend, or I guess whoever it was he was seeing. And they actually apparently like checked on the kids. And then they went down to the basement and the kids were all hanging out in this kind of like rec room on the top floor. And just about 10 kids, pretty low key. I say low key. Apparently they were drinking Four Locos, which I was like, people still drink Four Locos in 2024? I thought those had been outlawed.
I think they reformulated them.
Okay.
I could be wrong, but I think they reformulated them from like the chaos of what they once were because they could literally kill you.
Yeah, I'm like us in college. That was a disaster. But yeah, so they're drinking some Four Locos. There was like a little bit of weed smoking, but nothing else crazy going on. And I feel like you can tell in those pictures. I mean, they're all just like lay down on like a couch, kind of like Christian's on the ground. Like it's not.
Yeah, this doesn't even really, I mean, if we were thinking it was something like hard drugs, which I know you said there's no evidence of, this doesn't even really read as one of those like party scenarios where these kids would want to experiment with something like that. It's actually seeming a lot stranger than I think I initially thought.
Yeah, just because of how intimate it sort of is.
Yeah, like how small this party is and the thought that he just kind of vanished, if we believe that to be true, for an hour and then came back and he was in this state. What is that?
I know. And I think that's something we have to touch on is because it was so small, that's why it feels so strange and bizarre and why I think that there's something that somebody must know somewhere. So it was mostly a group of guys, but there was a girl there named Becca who I guess Christion had sort of been like on and off dating, hooking up with, and I think she had two of her friends there as well. Later on, Becca actually showed the police some of the pictures and the videos of the night, which I've got in there, and it just looks like a chill hangout, and on the surface, just a normal night with friends. But at one point after midnight, there was apparently a little like, I guess, side adventure where the boys headed out to a donut shop around the corner. Apparently they knew that like the donut shop, after it closed, they would put leftovers outside. So that was like the next timestamp is like some of the boys went out, including Christion. They like went and they picked up these donuts, brought them back. Everybody's still like eating the donuts, laughing, having a great time. And then at 2 a.m., that's where things apparently took a sharp turn. It's then that Becca and Christion apparently started fighting. And allegedly, Becca accused Christion of cheating on her and like sleeping with other girls, even though it's kind of unclear if they were really actually together at this point. But she accuses him of this. And then after that blowout, Becca and the couple of her girlfriends that came along, they decided to leave. And Eric says as soon as Becca left, Christian's whole demeanor changed and he stormed directly out of the house. Now, the boys apparently thought that he was just going to like go blow off some steam, maybe take a walk around the block. Eric apparently even tried to stop him, but Christion sort of like shoved him off and he just thought, whoa, okay, like best that I just like let him go do his thing, walk it off solo. But this is where I have a little bit of an issue with the story. I mean, if that is your friend, I feel like you don't just let him go walk off alone in the middle of the night. It kind of makes you wonder. For me, that was the first red flag. I was like, I feel like there's something else going on there. And especially because that extra detail of him getting physical with Eric, I was like, something feels off to me. I don't know.
He
how
said
you
like
feel
Eric
about
was
that.
saying he shoved him off. I can see it.
Yeah. I mean, it's just
I need more
to feel
context,
like,
but I can see this.
yeah. I mean, and I'll give you more. But to me, that was the first thing I was like, that feels like we've had our first physical escalation. And it seemed like we hadn't had any of that prior. So anyways, the bottom line.
It's a detail that Eric, sorry to cut you off. It's a detail that Eric he's aware that he should share it because it justifies why he hung back. He's saying, I didn't want to follow him because he already was exhibiting some physical violence or like some pushback. So I knew to keep my distance. That was the signal I got, which I don't want to say absolves him, but backs up his story of why he was missing in action. I think that's interesting.
Totally.
Creepers, please weigh in the comments and let us know how you feel about that, because this is like a diversion, I feel.
And it's, I think, extra little detail I can add while the creepers kind of weigh the idea of what that means to themselves. In the body cam footage, I remember he says the thing about him getting shoved. And then the officer's like, wait, he shoved you? Like, explain more about that. He was like, no. It was like a quick, like, so it just felt like he said that. And then the officers were like, that's something we should follow. And then he quickly was like, no, it was just like a quick, like he shouldn't have said anything. So anyways, maybe that's me reading in. But anyway, the bottom line is that Christion leaves Eric's house. And as the night goes on, everyone else trickles out except for Eric and Aiden. So now we're left with this big question mark, obviously, about what happened to Christion after he walked out that door. And mind you, remember at this point, Christion is supposedly, according to the autopsy, not drunk at all. But that's what Eric tells police. He says that when he shoved him, he was incredibly drunk and angry. Now, what Eric tells the police then happened is that at around 3 a.m., he and Aiden had sobered up enough that Eric was going to drive Aiden home. And I get a little bit suspicious here too, because I'm like, okay, if your friend still has not come back yet, this is an hour later, wouldn't you at least like call him or try to check on him or find him?
Yeah.
Before you go to drive your friend home? Just seems weird. But anyway, they head out to the car, and that's when they spot Christion lying at the end of the driveway. He's collapsed. He's got blood on him, and he can't really move or talk. And that's when they realize that something is seriously wrong. And that's when Eric supposedly called Christion's brother, Chris Jr., and he says, something's really wrong with your brother. What do you want me to do? And the brother said to bring him back home. So this is the initial story Eric gives the police that night. And then later on, they take him back in for more questioning. And I'm going to get to that in a second. But let me just ask how Eric's series of events is lining up for you so far.
In a weird way, I was tracking with it one-to-one because I'm working on a separate theory about what could have gone down outside of the house, solely because you're saying that Eric and this friend Aiden had remained in the home, according to their story, for most of the night, because that's where Eric lives, and other people were trickling out. I'm like, could Christion have interacted with somebody else at that party, another guy that was on his way out, and then there was a confrontation that happened in that hour during the exit?
That is a really good point. I have not thought about that. That is a really good point.
Oh, there was just such a crazy crash of thunder here. It's storming in LA. God
is
damn
it.
It.
Really? What in the world? I feel like that keeps happening. I'm like, that is
during like big things that I'm saying too, where I'm like,
I
have this theory, and then there's some crazy thing that happens in my place. Whoa.
I'm like, let's keep following that. If that keeps happening, I'm just going to invite.
Is that not a part of the theories though? Because there's so many people at this party. Anybody who was outside of the house, in theory, would have maybe had a higher likelihood of interacting with him.
I'm going to tell you, the theories about who he could have interacted with have been actually more about like him getting assaulted by somebody is like not at the party. It's been more like random people that live in this neighborhood, or like the possibility of strangers. I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but like I'm shocked that I didn't go down that path of like who could have been. I think it's because
it's the people you know.
Yeah, that's true. I just think maybe it's because, similar to the Alonzo Brooks case, it's really been Eric that's talked. Aiden has talked a little bit, and the one time he talked, he lawyered up right afterwards and hasn't said a word since. So I feel like any of the other kids at this party, I just didn't see anywhere in the research.
They probably did the same.
Yeah. So that's a really good point. But things are only going to get a bit murkier from here, and honestly more suspicious. Now, I don't think it's uncommon for teenagers in a high pressure situation to have their stories change a little bit. But when Eric comes in for the second round of questioning, the story changes in a few key ways.
Okay.
First, Eric now says that they actually found Christion a couple of houses down at a neighbor's driveway and not his own.
Huge diversion, by the way. That's not like, I remember an extra detail. That's a huge diversion from end of the driveway versus my neighbors.
3 houses down. And they found him, and I'm going to add more to this. They found him because there were these 3 kids outside as he was supposedly getting ready to drive Aiden home, and they were gathered around something in their driveway. And when they get closer, they realize it's these kids standing around Christion, and they, get out of the car, and they describe that these kids described to Eric that he's been stumbling around their front yard and their property. And these kids have even taken like Snapchat videos from inside the house because they were freaked out. They thought it was like an intruder. And then they thought that he was going to break into the house, and then he walked back out, and then he just collapsed in the driveway and was like convulsing. And they were like, oh my God. So they, I guess, banded together, felt brave enough, and they went outside to check on him. And the second detail Eric changes is about who was driving home at 3. Now he says that Aiden was driving and not him. And the only devil's advocate thing I'll give there is that maybe he realized before that he said he had been drinking and
fearful of a DUI charge coming later.
Yeah. Got really, really scared. But there's another twist. Apparently, before they even took Christion to his parents' house, they didn't leave immediately after making that call to his brother, Chris. they went and met up with this other friend, Braylon, who wasn't at the party originally. So after they called Christion's brother, they've introduced a new person into the mix. And I always say, I'm like, what new people get added to the story later? I think that adds just another layer of complexity and mystery. Like, why do they need to be there? It just makes you wonder, like, what everybody's role really was. And it makes it much harder to decipher the truth. So they apparently called Braylon. I was like, why bring this kid in? So they apparently called him to meet them at a nearby golf course called Bunker Hill Golf Course. And Eric says that this is because Braylon was actually the closest with the Olson family and with Christion. And I guess they wanted backup before driving Christion home, maybe to sort of like soften the blow and make them look more responsible in the Olson's eyes. And police, by the way, are pressing them about this the night of too. Like you said earlier, why didn't you guys call police? Like, why did you call this kid for backup? How badly was he messed up at this point? And why are you guys still like, toting him around, basically dragging him all over the place?
The worse it is, like the more pressure they would have to be like, this is an immediate problem. We have to call 911.
Yeah.
Why are they taking time to go consult with somebody at a golf court? This is crazy.
Exactly. And Eric says that he was in rough shape. He was throwing up consistently, and they kept having to stop every so often so he could throw up. And he said that that, I guess, sort of played into why they didn't call police initially. They were like trying to take care of him and couldn't get their act together enough, I guess, to call. He says we should have called police, but I just thought it was better to take care of him and then call Chris first so that we didn't freak the parents out entirely. So obviously so many things have gotten shifted around here, but one thing remains the same, which is that Christion left that house at 2 a.m. and then was found in this horrific state by 3 a.m. in someone's driveway, bleeding, vomiting, and barely able to function. So what the hell happened? Well, it's going to get even more interesting because this is a brand new case and everybody's been very tight-lipped, but they did manage to get search warrants for Christion, Aiden's, and Eric's phones. And I was kind of surprised too, because it seems like every case we cover, the cell phone data rules are always shifting. I'm like, I feel like that never happens where they're able to get a search warrant that fast. So
yeah, the turnaround time is not quick on that.
I know. So I'm like, if anybody knows what that is, somebody talk to me, because I feel like every single case it varies. But apparently here in Medina, they were able to get that search warrant and they pull the location data. And what they find is that Christion's phone was in the vicinity, is what it says, outside Eric's home between 2 and 3 a.m., while Eric and Aiden's phones ping from inside the house during that same time window. Now, of course, that could just mean that the phones were left inside and the guys could have been outside, but it does at least give us a bit of a timeline that Christion was definitely outside with his cell phone at that time.
Matches up.
Yeah, and they did find him with his phone on him. Like when he came into his house, he had it on. Now, of course, police try to dig into any text messages or calls that would spell out anything nefarious. And Eric tells him, he kind of warns them ahead of time. He said, you're probably not going to find anything. And that's because we do the majority of our calling and our texting through Snapchat. And Snapchat is encrypted and often has disappearing messages. So it left no trace for the police to follow. But of course, they're still going to check to see if there's any sort of shady messages.
Why do they do it all through Snapchat?
Logs. I don't know. I do think that's a thing, though.
It is. It definitely is. I'm just wondering, maybe because it's all centralized into one place where they're already using Snapchat, and they're like, well, I can also call here and text here. So why would I switch over to iMessage?
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's just so popular now too that it's just
that creates a really big problem for cases to come, forensics wise, if you're trying to tap phone data.
And I didn't really realize that it's encrypted. I mean, I guess I should have realized that, but I thought that, I guess those apps, I'm sure, go to the ends of the earth to make sure that they're protected. But I was shocked to read that. But according to police, they come up completely empty of any sort of call log or text message that makes something look like something shady went down. The only solid piece of information that they have is that Christion's phone went dark at 2:14 a.m. So we also
have... What does that mean? Off?
So dark either means that it went off on his own accord or it died. Yeah. So the reason why I included it is at least we have a timestamp of when things kind of probably went off the grid. We have a weird 15-minute window where he still was using his phone and then all of a sudden goes dark. And it's maddening that all of the important information is most likely in some sort of like disappearing messages. And I had in here, by the way, when I say it goes dark, it means that it either died or it switched off. And they can't tell which one is the case. But the phone wasn't broken or anything like that when they brought Christion back to his parents' house, which makes it even more weird. It's like you would think that if it went dark and he was in some sort of altercation, you would be able to tell that from the nature of the phone.
It sounds like it probably did die.
Yeah.
Is what I'm thinking. It's just the timing of it being in that window especially seems odd.
Yeah.
I don't want to ignore that.
Weird. Yeah. And of course, police are going to try to find any sort of extra footage, like from Ring cameras or security cameras around the neighborhood.
It's a rich neighborhood. There's got to be a Ring camera.
Exactly. And just a note, police actually went door to door along this road, which is called Topaz Lane, the street where Eric lived. And it's surprising because according to everyone they talked to, either their Ring cameras weren't working or they just didn't have them turned on. So, I mean, it's an affluent neighborhood. Like you said, you would think that at least one person caught something. And according to police, nobody has ever been able to provide any sort of Ring camera footage, which is, I don't know what that says to you, but it says something to me. I will also just mention that this neighborhood, we've said it's affluent, but it is also predominantly white. And Christion was one of the only Black kids at this gathering. And I mention this because the family did apparently face some really painful moments afterwards. And I'm talking, I think I've got some photos of it there, but they would do these marches throughout this Brunswick Hills
Is that on a different page?
Yeah, it might be on the last page.
Should I scroll?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I remember the mom saying, we had some racial slurs yelled at us, and it just obviously adds another layer of complexity to the atmosphere and how this community really reacted. So the fact that nobody wanted to share footage, even if that is just a coincidence, just stands out strange, and I guess the right word would be sour to me in the context of just knowing this is also a predominantly white neighborhood. I will say though, as I dug deeper, it really felt like even if the neighbors' cameras didn't capture anything, the whole neighborhood, just in general with this case, did not come together to really provide many clues to police.
Like witness statements? Anybody hear anything?
I think there's one person that I have in my research that came forward. These pretty
people
much
seem off. They seem weird.
Very off. And everybody has kept very quiet and did not want to get involved, which again, paints a very specific picture to me. But moving on from that, since we don't have any footage, the next logical step is to take a look at the injuries and kind of examine the theories that we have at play here. So one of the first theories that people had was that maybe he got hit by a car, just like in a hit and run.
I was thinking that.
And I mean, after all, he had blunt force trauma. And at first glance, it definitely looks like that could be a plausible scenario. But the Brunswick Hills police have said that they don't think that it is likely. And I found this interesting. Apparently, that area, which I guess you can see, it's kind of a low speed cul-de-sac area. And the kind of injuries Christion had, I guess, weren't consistent with a high impact car accident.
I imagined it differently.
Huh. You tell me.
Well, only because you said there were people who were trickling out of the party. I was like, did somebody back up out of that driveway over him? While he was sitting at the edge of it?
Oh, that's interesting. Like he's sitting down just like on his phone or something. And then
I mean, I threw parties. This was in high school, but like kids sometimes when they leave and they're like waiting for a ride or they're like something happened at the party or they're angry. I've literally seen kids in my own driveway sitting at the edge of the driveway. They sit at the edge of the driveway, like on a curb. And people, when they're leaving, when they've been drinking, they just like soar out of a driveway because it's a cul-de-sac. It's a quiet suburban place. So they're like, there's not going to be a car, but they certainly don't expect a person sitting at the edge of the driveway.
A really interesting angle. Because the reason why I thought I started to understand what police were saying is that if you get hit by a car, like normally it's going to show like waist down, like you like broken bones, broken legs. Like it's weird that he was here is where the blunt force trauma was. He would have had to, I guess, like really get hit and like immediately hit the hood with his head. But that's a really interesting angle. I can see that.
I thought of it. I was thinking of it so much while you were talking about this. And then I had kind of ruled it out because I was referencing back to Karen Reed and talking about like the difference on John O'Keefe's body and how he didn't have a lot of the telltale signs of like this was a car impact. Like you would maybe see like road rash or some kind of like a burn from the gravel or the pavement. I don't know if that's connected to Christian's autopsy, but it's what I was thinking. I'm like, maybe that's not the story, but it's the first thing I thought of.
That's so, I didn't see anything about like gravel or anything like that, but that is, I can absolutely see that in my mind. And also like that would kind of explain why the phone went dark when it did.
But the phone wasn't damaged.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Shoot.
No,
That's
the phone was either turned off by him or it simply died. I'm going to imagine it died because that seems like the right hour.
Yeah.
If you've been using it all day, like your phone would probably lose juice by 2:14 in the morning.
Yeah. And I guess it's possible that he got hit and the phone wouldn't be damaged if it wasn't like, I don't know, if his phone was in his pocket or something and really most of the damage came to his like head and his waist sort of. That's a really interesting angle. One other thing that I came across is that apparently there was sort of this like sketchy pickup truck that some neighbors had noticed parked around Topaz Lane in the upcoming weeks or I guess the weeks prior to this party. And it wasn't abandoned. Like it seemed like whoever it was had been moving it around the neighborhood to park. But suddenly, according to a couple of neighbors, it disappeared right after this case. Right after everything went down. And I guess this is the only helpful neighbor in the whole freaking neighborhood that came forward and told police about that. They do go down. They do chase this lead, but apparently, according to police, they don't think it's related. But I did just want to point that out. Since we don't have a ton to go off of here detail-wise, I just found that to be interesting. Now, as I examined these two theories, I dug a little bit deeper and found out that Christion was apparently wearing like all dark clothing. He had on black pants, a black sweatshirt that night. So I don't think it's an impossibility that he could have been hit by a car. But yeah, like I said, it just, the blunt force trauma didn't really align with the patterns that police thought would be typical for a hit and run. So I have here, I was going to ask you about the theories, but I feel like we've kind of already talked about it. But I do think it's an interesting angle to think about and I don't even know if this is quite what they meant with the pickup truck, like an opportunistic like attack on somebody. I don't know what that really was. I mean, I guess
depends what they think the pickup truck was. If it was someone who was living in their car, maybe is that what they're suggesting? Because it sounds like it was someone who was like parked around the neighborhood, just kind of like idle.
Yeah.
Maybe once they saw cop lights come to the house when police came later on, maybe to do like an intake or something at it's Eric, right? Eric's home. Maybe that's when this guy who was maybe living in his car got a little sketched out, even if he was unrelated to the case and what happened. He's like, police are bad, run away. Yes,
that's kind of what I think too. The third theory that I do want to talk about though, and I think it's probably the most important one, the obvious one, is that Christion might have gotten into some sort of physical altercation, maybe with someone that he knew, like you mentioned, or maybe with a stranger. And to me, a stranger definitely seems less likely, but not impossible. The key thing is that when he got back to his parents' house, his dad obviously noticed immediately how banged up he looked. And that shoe print I thought was very telling.
Oh, the shoe. I forgot about the shoe print. Okay, I totally scrapped the car theory.
Oh, yeah, right.
Completely scrapped the car theory.
Quite makes sense. Well, I guess unless somebody hit him and then, rolled him over or something to take a look. But I feel like a shoe print, you have to be putting a lot of pressure on somebody to achieve that. But again, remember he gets there and he looks drunk, but he's not drunk when he gets to the house. And even though Eric insisted to the police that there was no real fight, just that little shove when Christion left the house, I find it very hard to not question that more. It does feel like there was some sort of escalation that was starting right before he left. And then with the phone dying or being turned off minutes later, something to me just feels more sinister underneath the surface. And I guess unless he shuts his phone off to avoid like talking to people or something, that could be the case too, is that he was like, screw these people. And then he like turns it off and everybody's texting him being like, where are you? Where are you? And he's just, walking around the neighborhood.
Some people would just throw their phone on airplane mode as like an alternate to do not disturb or something if their phone's blowing up, if they just don't want to deal with it. That could also maybe pull it off the grid.
Yeah, but I feel like, again, I'm like, wouldn't the kids say, we called him? Like, you can, like, I felt like that whole thing about you're not going to find the messages or the calls to also be weird. Because even if I know that as his friend, like that we use Snapchat to call each other, I would still probably tell police I was calling him consistently, like, and we could not get a read on where he was.
Wait, so just to clarify, so they said they didn't find him till 3 a.m., right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that full hour, he's like unaccounted for.
Yeah.
Did they say what they were maybe doing in the house? Were they just hanging out, talking?
I think they were just hanging out, talking, like trying to sober up because they knew that they were going to have to drive Aiden home later, according to Eric.
Got it. Okay, so they're still like just hanging out theoretically.
Yes.
And
yes.
maybe there wouldn't be a reason to call Christion if they were sure that he just like walked straight off. Or did they even suggest he was drinking? Did they say he was?
Yeah. They were like, he was wasted. When they showed up to the parents' house, they were like, he must be absolutely wasted. He's been drinking all night. And then
something's not aligning here.
Mm-hmm.
Something is so off.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And the dad, and I swear to God, this dad knows. He's like, somebody is not telling me exactly what happened. And I wish I could have been a fly on the wall to have seen his interaction with those two boys when they brought him in. Because from what it seems like with the dad, he was like, I know that my son is not drunk right now. What the hell is going on? And they were drunk, Eric and Aiden. I guess they had sobered up enough that Aiden could drive them home. But they were like, we don't know. Just like panicking, I guess. But to this point, media sources have been able to tap some of the key players at this party and ask them what they remember about this supposed fight, because Eric has continued to stick to that original story, and he has kind of maintained that this fight was a big deal. Like, it was a big fight between Christion and Becca, but Becca has come out publicly and she has stated that it really was not like that. She was like, Christion and I were not exclusive. Like, I was just sort of poking the bear because I knew he was like texting other girls, talking to them. And I kind of just said something flippantly, but we were not together. Like, there was no expectation that he couldn't go do other things, which I can see that. Like, I can see it just being like a high school scenario where it's like, there's this guy you've kind of been on again, off again with, and you kind of like say something when you're at a party. But she was like, it was not like this knockdown, drag out thing where I was like, how could you do this to me? I don't know how you feel about that.
I have lots of questions about whether or not there might have been someone else at the party Becca was involved with. And this is sort of I don't want to say a love triangle, but like a revenge attack on her behalf, not perpetrated by her, but by someone, another guy at the party who maybe bore witness to this exchange and knew of the dynamic.
I think you're onto something there for sure. I mean, that's immediately where my head went when because I've been in that predicament before in high school. Guys can get your hormones are raging, and one little thing like that, if alcohol is involved, I could totally see that happening. But she maintained, she was like, it was not this full-blown dramatic physical incident or anything like that. And then there's that friend Aiden, who said later that he was actually in the bathroom at the time this so-called big fight was happening. And he said that he didn't hear a thing. So if it really was this big blowout that Eric is describing, you'd think that someone just a room away would have heard it. But Aiden said this once publicly, and then he never said it again. Then he lawyered up and hasn't spoken to the public ever since that.
Incredibly convenient. Okay.
Now, add all of that to the fact that Christion wasn't actually drunk, obviously, despite Eric saying that he was. And it definitely starts to feel like Eric's story, to me, is maybe one where the truth is being improved. And I feel like maybe you're tracking with me on that.
You have to answer to that. Like, he has to answer to that. Like, unless we're going to go statistically, I don't think we're going to suggest the medical examiner is falsifying a toxicology report when it comes to blood alcohol levels. So, because even if it takes 6 to 8 weeks for it to come back, I believe the body an autopsy was performed and blood was taken relatively soon after he died. So I don't know that it could have fully metabolized, if that's the truth. But
yeah, well, let me ask you this though. Like, what if it wasn't alcohol? Is there a world where he did just get messed up, but Eric didn't know what it was that he did?
But that would also show up in a tox report, wouldn't it?
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. I mean, the tox report seems like that's a false lead because it seems like he didn't have an illegal substance. So if I have to make sense of the vomiting of the blood, and I don't know how much of this autopsy has been publicly released, my guess is not enough, because what did they officially say were his injuries? They just said there was a gash on his shoulder, and then he has a shoe print on his head.
Then he had basically blunt force trauma to the neck and abdomen, and he had puncture.
The neck and
he had
abdomen.
internal puncturing in his liver, and I believe his lungs actually too. I need to go back and check, but internal punctures, which
Could a physical beating? I guess a physical beating could do that. I mean, I'm thinking of Blair Adams where he was beaten so badly his stomach literally ruptured, and that's what killed him.
Yeah. I mean, that's where that seems the most natural to me, is that somebody just beat him to a freaking pulp. But again, it just feels like somebody in that neighborhood, I feel like, would have witnessed that. Don't you think? Like, I feel like even if it's 3 a.m., I feel like boys being boys and getting rowdy and having a fight with each other, you'd hear that in somebody's front yard if he is in fact outside.
Well, I was also still tracking with the idea that he was maybe allegedly found 3 houses down in a driveway surrounded by 3 people who initially thought he was an intruder and got the nerve to go outside. I mean, they have one version of events where they're like, we worked up the nerve once he passed out in our driveway. Did that happen? Or did you assume he was an intruder and then you beat the hell out of him with a weapon?
Oh, shoot. That's actually good too. But then why would Eric protect? Why wouldn't he just say, like, we are pretty sure that he got beat up by these kids?
I think Eric was covering his ass for fear of the DUI scenario. And then maybe within the first 48 hours, Daddy came in and was like, you can't say a word. We got to get you a lawyer.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know that Eric knew he was intentionally protecting or even really knew what happened. I mean, maybe he went over there in the dark, also being drunk, and was confused. And he's like, I don't know. He didn't see the beating, right? So he just assumed he's like, well, he's unconscious or he's like out of it. Maybe he's blackout drunk. Oh my God. Like, how are we going to get him home? I'm drunk. How am I going to drive? But I don't want to get in trouble with my dad. I don't want to call the police. I don't want to get in trouble with his parents. We got to drive him home. And that doesn't really have the full story that this kid was beaten, maybe, by neighbors who falsely accused him of being an intruder on their property.
I feel like you're onto something with this, because I also feel like it's very sketchy that he flip-flopped that part of the story. And I'm wondering if that's because when he first got there, he like didn't ask or assume that that's what happened.
Didn't even think it was relevant. He was like, oh my God, maybe he is so drunk and like I didn't keep a good watch on him and he like really stumbled over there. But that's just the version of the story he got from those neighbors.
Yeah. And then
I need to know more
on,
about them.
I know. And I don't think I from what I read, it seemed like they were young. Like they weren't these kids' ages, but maybe I'm wrong about that. And I can
young,
go back
like teenagers?
Like younger, like probably like 12 years old, like not like 18.
Where are their parents? What are they doing up?
I guess they were just having like a sleepover, but I don't think they were older. But I need to go back and check. I mean, I don't think I even saw.
I don't know.
In the
teenagers
research.
they're also capable of hurting somebody. It's just
You're onto something there with that though, because I feel like it's a convenient thing for him later to be like, oh wait, actually we found him 3 houses down, and that places the bloodied, beaten body at someone else's doorstep and not theirs.
Yeah, I'm just curious about who that's serving. Like, which part of the story is that? Eric covering his ass, or I mean, surely those kids in that family in that driveway would be questioned later on by police, I would hope.
Yeah.
So then they have to answer to that to say whether or not it's true. Like, there's a big chunk of that story that's missing for me. And also, was it ever released in the autopsy? I feel like parts of this probably weren't. Like, what actually happened to him that was making him vomit blood? Like, I don't even know how that happens. I guess like the injuries to the neck, probably. I
think it was probably that, but it seemed like it was more the like internal bleeding and puncturing that had happened that was maybe his body's reaction to that, is my guess. I don't know. Medical creepers weigh in, but I think that's what they were trying to convey.
And Christion were sure in the state that he was in, where he's like in a delirium from being knocked around and beaten. I'm assuming he was beaten terribly. He never mentioned like anything they think about, like what could have happened. Never said like I was beaten. He was just out of it.
And unless he said it, here's another interesting thing. Unless he said things while they were in that timeline of like, they made the call to the brother and then Christion started to lose more and more consciousness as he got to the parents' house, and they delayed him because of that. I mean, I don't think they have the foresight to know that by the time they get to the house, he's going to basically be unable to speak. But I do think we have to call out that they make that call to the brother, and then for some reason they're driving around for the next 40 minutes.
And they're you said they're about 20 miles away from Christion's home.
Yeah, it should have taken like 20 minutes to get him home.
It's difficult to say. I think there's something that bodes well for Eric's story in that we have phone data that supports that Christion, within that hour of something going down, was outside of the home, and the two boys, according to their phone data, were inside the home. And then this mystery component to the story about allegedly finding him in this state in a driveway 3 houses down, surrounded by teenagers, adolescents.
Mm-hmm.
And he has marks on him, which I guess they didn't notice in the dark, or they were like just running on high energy. They weren't really inspecting him. That looks like he was beaten severely.
Mm-hmm.
Dies of blunt force trauma. Somebody did this. I mean, we could say it was Eric and his friend. We could say it was these 3 boys at the house down. We could say it was somebody who left the party, who confronted him in the driveway.
Yeah.
But it was somebody that night, I think, who the closest thing to opportunistic would be the 3 boys down the way who thought he was an intruder, if that part of the story is true.
Yeah. One thing I will just mention about the 3 kids is that they did film this on Snapchat. And I believe that was shown to police, like Christion stumbling outside of the house. So I feel like if they did do something to him, that would also be like very self-incriminating for them to like show
but they're
those
kids.
videos.
They don't know anything.
Yeah.
I mean, kids do terrible things and take videos of it because they think it's funny.
Yeah.
And then like once they realize it's a problem and police come knocking, they get scared and they just like hand things over. But if it doesn't tell the full story, it doesn't tell the full story.
That's a good point.
All you see is Christian stumbling around a driveway and you're like, yeah, it looks like he's intoxicated. But what happened before that camera was rolling?
Yeah. Oh God. Do you see why this case is so unnerving?
Of
like
course,
imagine being the parents.
I can see how like desperate you would be to find answers in this and like question people. I need more information on who lived in that house, like whose house that was, and like
who the kids.
Yeah. Like if there's some connection there as to why police haven't probed into that, because that seems like doesn't it seem like a crazy good lead?
Yeah.
Like he was clearly beaten by somebody. And although it's less likely, I suppose, that it would be as random as that, you have to weigh the factors that Christion was Black. He was wandering through someone's yard. These kids admitted to saying we thought he was a trespasser. And he has marks on him as if he was beaten. It's like, put 2 and 2 together.
Yeah. Well, I feel like that is probably our best and most likely theory. However,
what do you think?
I mean, I do think somebody beat the crap out of him. And I think it would be very strange for it to have just been a random altercation with someone. I don't know. I feel like it really does parallel Alonzo Brooks in a weird way. And if we kind of follow that pattern, born out of the same thing, maybe like having, a girl kind of being at the center of it. And I think that there was probably, to your point, somebody at that party that maybe, even if they didn't have a relationship with Becca, maybe even said like, you got to chill out, like, or you got to treat her better or something like that.
Yeah.
And then he leaves the party. And maybe I also thought to myself, I was like, I feel like there was some kid at this party that was like a friend of a friend that might have been the aggressor. And there could have been a responsibility factor there with Eric where that friend of a friend was his. And then all this happened because he invited somebody in there that was like not a friend of Christian's. And I don't know why that tracks for me, but it also kind of explains to me why he would then call that friend Braylon and be like, okay, I need like real backup here to like make sure he feels safe and like get him to the parents' house. I found that to be so telling, him calling this friend in the middle of the night. And also what I think is weird about that is that it's 3:00 in the morning and this kid is just like awake. Don't you think that he had been texting with Braylon, telling him about like what the situation was probably prior to that?
Probably. I was wondering so much of Eric's story because it does seem like, I don't know, illogical for a lot of this, where I'm like, okay, this kid is in dire need of some help. Why are you calling people? Why are you driving around? I'm just wondering if a lot of it was born out of 2 things: not recognizing the seriousness of Christian's state, but also trying desperately to cover his ass because of what you're saying, where he's like, this is partially my responsibility to clean up, but I'm also drunk. And now I have to like kind of drink and drive to get him someplace.
Yeah.
But just not realizing I should have been calling 911. This was much more, I had no idea he was going to die tonight.
Mm-hmm. And
There's
go ahead. Keep going.
I don't know. I weight it so equally on both sides. I was going with the neighbor theory, but I can totally see somebody at that party, of course, having a connection based on Becca and like getting into an altercation with him in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that, I mean, Eric and his friend are at the forefront of this is because there's body camera footage. So that's why the media picks it up, because there are visuals to like connect them to the story. They were with the story for more of it. It doesn't mean that they are at the center of it. It could be an anonymous kid who was at that party that we just don't know.
And I mean, I will say again, like I said in the top, when you watch him talk to officers, he seems very shocked. He seems like he's like, oh, and I know a lot of that is just like, he's probably in his mind thinking like, oh my God, how did I get here? Like, this was so stupid, everything I did tonight. But you could feel in a different way of like somebody trying to cover something up and giving all the right answers. It felt like he was trying to give the right answers to figure out what the hell happened. Like you could hear that shock.
I gotta watch it. I gotta watch that footage.
Yeah. I mean, I'll watch you come back. You'll be like, baby, I can see right through this. And I'll be like, okay. But yeah, I mean, maybe I can
I don't know.
leave a link
It's a really tough case. I feel like there are such big chunks in like every section of it between like what happened in the autopsy and the tox report and the story itself, where I'm like, I really don't know which way to lean.
I know. Well, let me throw one more curveball at you. And I want you to take this theory with a grain of salt. But one theory that has been floating around is that just a couple of weeks before this all went down, on July 7th, to be exact, there was a robbery in this area. And it was, I guess, involving somebody that was like a known drug dealer, not in Brunswick Hills, but like in Medina.
Mm-hmm.
And according to the reports, this dealer got hit by two masked guys who like made off with, I think it was like sneakers, a lot of weed, some cash. And this drug dealer came forward and basically pressed charges against these robbers. And one of them ended up being caught.
That's kind of, I don't want to say funny, but
yeah. Well,
the irony of the drug dealer coming in to press charges.
I know. It's kind of in my mind, it feels very like Rocky and Bullwinkle. Like it's like, okay. But the second robber never was caught. And this dealer is convinced that the second guy, based off of nothing more than a glimpse, I guess, of his eyebrows is what I read, might have been Christion Olson. And apparently the dealer is urging cops to test, I guess this, or maybe they've already tested it at this point, but there was like a cap that was left behind at the scene for DNA, try to link it back to Christion. But as far as I can tell, there's been no real evidence yet that it's either been tested or that police think that Christion was involved in this at all. And of course, Christion's family thinks that this theory is absolutely ridiculous. They think that the dealer just saw Christion's name in the media and tried to stir the pot. But the thought is that this guy could have targeted Christion to get back at him that night, which I kind of call BS on, because I think to, I don't know, immediately put it back on yourself publicly is pretty stupid. Like to introduce yourself to the public with the story, and then if it were to circumvent back to you, that would be like the dumbest thing ever. But
yeah, I mean, was he suggesting? Was he already? Wait, was this accusation like already underway? Is what he was suggesting, like before Christion even died?
Yeah, so it was essentially like the week, or I guess 2 weeks before Christion died, this had happened to him. He had been robbed. And then this whole story comes out about Christion dying. And he's like, oh, I think that kid was the perp, the kid that like came into my house and robbed me.
Wait, but who does he think beat Christion?
Who does he think beat Christion? Exactly. Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
I thought you were saying that because of this, he was like targeting Christion. I'm like, so he only realized, so he's saying he only realized it was Christion after it hit the media after he died.
Yes.
But he was also saying, people are also saying he beat Christion.
That's why I'm like, this is the dumbest thing ever to route it back to yourself. Like, that makes no sense. And his family is like, this is ridiculous. So anyways, just had to bring that out because this case is so light, I guess, with detail. So when I saw that, I was like, I should probably mention that. But, you know, whether it was this guy or someone else, something that has been pointed out is that there is a possibility that someone also could have had Christion's Snapchat location, since we know his phone was on him that night.
That is an interesting angle.
And were they using it to track him and then sort of blitz attack him, regardless of whether or not it was this dumb drug dealer or somebody else entirely? But again, like, what would have been the motive to do that sort of like blitz attack on him? And my gut feeling here, to you and to the creepers is that somewhere out there, maybe it's in a Snapchat conversation or some other sort of encrypted app, that there is an enormous piece of the puzzle that we're missing. And I know that somebody out there knows something, and maybe it's just a message that's been overlooked or a piece of information that hasn't surfaced yet because people are scared to talk. But I think whatever that thing is, it's going to get us closer to solving what really happened to Christion Olson. I mean, there are just so many, as we've shown in this case, so many missing parts here, including basically an entire hour of time that feels like it's just sort of living in a void. And until those hidden messages or those maybe digital breadcrumbs come to light, we're just sort of left connecting the dots with the most important part of the picture missing. So here's the tough part. I was really hoping that with this case being, more than a year old now, we'd have something, some sort of update, some sort of lead to offer. But when I looked at the 1-year anniversary post from this past summer, it's just heartbreaking. There's basically been no real movement, no substantial updates given to the family about how this investigation is proceeding. And just to quote his dad, he said, "You should not feel safe at night. There is a killer walking the streets right now. Somebody knows something. Somebody's seen something. Someone's got a piece of information that is invaluable. We need that person or someone to come forward." And he's basically also said the family has really been left in the dark by police, and they feel like they deserve to know, obviously, what's happening. So that's where I hope that you and I, and of course the creepers, can come in. I really hope we can try to elevate this case and get more eyes and ears on it, especially if you're from that area, the Medina, Ohio area, or anywhere nearby. Spread the word, because it is just so awful that this family is so in the dark about this. Even if police and law enforcement have a reason for them being so cryptic with the family, they deserve to know that still. And it just sounds like police aren't giving them anything, even any sort of update that they can't share with them. They're getting nothing back. So I just want to put pressure on this case. And I feel like we've sort of beaten, a dead horse with the theories, but any sort of final thoughts you have on what you really, if you had to say what you think happened and submit it as an answer, what you would say?
I don't know. I mean, I think we've hashed through a couple of options that make a lot of sense to me. It seems definitive he was beaten by someone. And in my mind, the only two avenues that it could go is that it is related to someone who was at that party. And I believe it centralizes back to an existing beef or that confrontation with Becca. I don't think we can consider that randomized, even though it was downplayed quite a bit. That, or the scenario of a false accusation of being a trespasser because he was a young Black kid who was on someone's property 3 houses down late into the night, whether he was walking or whatever it is, and something took place where he was beaten to the point of death. There are no other ways that I can see this. Do you know by chance if he was buried or if he was cremated?
I don't know.
God.
I hope to God that he was buried.
Yeah,
because
I think this case should be elevated. I do wish there would be more shows that would cover this, like you're saying, and put more pressure on it. And I would suggest a second autopsy would be really necessary for this case.
Yeah, I think you're totally right with that. Because what I was going to kind of close out on is that I definitely want to do more updates on this case as more information comes out. But something that just dawned on me that I don't remember seeing in the autopsy is if there were any signs of defense, like him hitting back. I feel like that could be really telling too, because it seemed like he just got beaten to a pulp and had no chance to fight back.
I mean, that's a piece of it, but there's a lack of forensic investigation in this. If he has a shoe print found on his face, you have to look at the pattern of that print and match it up to the shoes of the party goers. I mean, that's going to tell you your story as to whose foot that belongs to.
Yeah, unless, and I hope this isn't the case, but unless his dad got that story. What case were we doing recently where somebody said there was a shoe print found and the police were like, "Oh no, that looks like, it was Jessica Renee Johnson." And her mom, I think, said it looked like there was a shoe print on her face. And the police were like, "Oh no, that was a piece of the rope had made an indent on her face."
Oh, well, that was also a case of insane county corruption or
exactly.
That was insane.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that they didn't give that back to the parents. But
I wonder if the coroner photographed the body. I mean, that should definitely happen at the place and time of death.
Yeah.
The exact way that the body was first seen by people. But if they got multiple witnesses saying, we saw a shoe print. you can match that up to a sneaker. Like you can match that up by size. Like you can whittle that down based on the boys that interacted with him that night, I would think.
And I didn't see, again, I mean, it's hard to pull together all these details, but I do wonder if anybody was related to, county, of course, or officers, any of those kids. Yeah. I don't think... I know for a fact that Eric's dad wasn't.
There's some reason here. County's not absolved in this. There's some reason that I think there's been a lack of push on this from them, and also that they've kind of iced out the family from what you said, where like the family's begging for answers, and they're like, "Let us do our jobs." And it's like, well, we don't have until 2080. But
yeah. I'll also say one last thing is that I think that group Crime Stoppers, which is sort of like a vigilante group, they were really on this, and then I read, and I don't want to like misquote here, but I read an article about them having to like pull out fast, like basically pull back resources to investigate this case even more. And I was like, that smells fishy. That smells like somebody said, like, get out of here.
Yeah.
So anyways, well, I want to thank you so much for going through that, because I know these are tough when it's like we're kind of grasping at straws with all the details that are here.
I love these cases. I mean, because there's somewhere for them to go. So I cannot wait to hear what the creepers are going to say about it.
Yes.
I'm sure they're going to have lots of opinions. So please share them with us. Comment on Reddit or on Spotify to tell us what you think might have happened.
Yes, please, creepers. And I will definitely keep us updated. I'm definitely going to be following this one. That's just the more, and I encourage people to go watch what the family has said about being left in the dark and how you can just feel it. You can just feel how corrupt it is. So with that, I will just say thank you so much once again to you and the creepers. And with that, we will catch you on another Friday episode. But until then, we're going to say goodbye.
And good luck.
Bye, creepers.